My name's Luca. I'm from DigitalOcean, and I'm here to talk to you today about DigitalOcean, networking in general, and how we are using ThousandEyes to monitor the performance of our cloud. So a little bit about me first. I am the manager of the networking team at DO. I am a manager, however, I started my career as most network guys do, as a support guy on a help desk, you know, really busting my chops on fixing printers and Windows XP and all that horrible stuff that you know, isn't around anymore. So, you know, soon moved into network engineering and worked for a couple of cloud providers out of Australia and decided that I wanted something bigger and better. So DigitalOcean were advertising a networking job on their website, and I thought, you know, why not go for it? That was almost 2 years ago, and so I've been there ever since. So I actually spent the first 6 or 7 months working for DO out of Sydney, and decided to move to New York in December of last year, and you know, soon became pretty aware that I was very unprepared to live in a New York winter. As I was walking to work in a pair of Chuck Taylors in 3 feet of snow, it wasn't a fun experience. So I bought myself a nice pair of boots, some nice jackets, and I'm looking forward to this winter. So like I said, I am the manager of the network team, but you know, my heart lies with network engineering, and I feel like network engineers spend half their time proving that the problem that someone's troubleshooting isn't the network. You know, if someone's app's running slow or some website's not responding, you know, it must be the network, but you know, 9 times out of 10 it really isn't. So I feel like we spend a lot of time doing that. So one thing we do at DO when someone new starts, as a bit of an icebreaker, is 2 truths and a lie. So these are my 2 truths and 1 lie. So I'll let you guys have a read of that, and if you're interested, come and see me later, and I'll tell you which one of them is not true. Maybe not. Who knows? So yeah, a little bit about DigitalOcean. We're an infrastructure as a service company, founded in New York by 2 brothers, Ben and Moisey Uretsky. Started in around 2011 when Ben and Moisey were running another company called ServerStack, which was just a basic hosting company, nothing virtual, just physical machines. So yeah, started around 2011. Ben and Moisey went out to Techstars on the West Coast to raise a bit of money. They got about $3 million from a Series A funding, which they used to build our first data center here in New York, out in North Bergen, in sunny North Bergen in New Jersey. And we still have that data center today. It's our NYC1 is what we call it. So around 2012, the company really started to ramp up. Early 2012, we had something like, you know, a few hundred customers running something like 1,000, maybe 2,000 VMs. Today, we have 11 data centers. We have something like 12,000 physical servers, and we're hosting over 500,000 VMs on all those things. So we really have scaled quickly, and we know how to scale, and that presents a lot of challenges, which I'll talk about a little bit. But yeah, the company's really growing. We're just down on 6th Avenue here in New York. We've got 3 floors in the building, got about 150 people, a lot of remote staff. So the company is really booming, and it's really great to be a part of. So these are the 11 locations. As I said, our first one was in New York. We now have 3 data centers in New York. Amsterdam was our next was our second data center. We now have 3 there as well. We've got San Francisco, London, Singapore, Frankfurt, and we just opened our Toronto location probably maybe a month ago now, maybe 2 weeks. I don't know. Time flies. So that was our newest. Last year we opened 4 new locations. This year we've only done 2. Next year we plan on doing another 2 or 3, depending on a few things, but that's us. So networking at DigitalOcean. Right now we're a team of 5 network engineers, which is a small team to look after the size of infrastructure that we have. But we are hiring, so if anyone's looking for a job, come and talk to me afterwards. We like remote people, we like people in New York, we don't care, so come and talk to me. So what we do and how we do it, you know, we're a pretty typical network engineering team. You know, we look after routers, switches, firewalls, load balancers, VPNs, all the bits and pieces that make up the network. We're primarily a Juniper shop, so we use MX routers, EX switches, and QFX switches as well. Our latest design is using all QFX switches. We build 40 gig down to the servers, dual 40 gig in all our new data centers. We have 40 gig top of rack, we have a 40 gig spine aggregation layer, 40 gig core, and then we buy tons of transit from all the tier 1 providers that you will probably know and maybe love, who knows. We're also really big on peering with people, so in every single one of those locations we're on IX points, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, depending on the location. So if anyone wants to peer with us, then by all means let me know, peering@digitalocean.com, and we'll happily set up a session. So just some of the networking jargon that we see these days. Software-defined networking is the buzz acronym of the last few years. And what that really means for us, at least at DigitalOcean, is separating the control plane from the data planes. The data plane is where all the action happens, is where stuff forwards and goes really quickly. The control plane is something that to scale a data center and to scale to 500,000 droplets, you really need something that knows where everything is. And it needs to be able to talk to your hypervisors and build the tunnels between hypervisors and sometimes between data centers. So this is stuff like Open Contrail, Nuage, using VXLAN, MPLS over GRE, all those things. So our next couple of data centers will be our first that are fully software defined. So it's really, really interesting stuff there. Some of the challenges that we face at DigitalOcean, obviously scale is one of the big ones. In our early days, we built gigantic layer 2 networks to make everything happen. The less said about layer 2, the better, but it gets scary. Some of the biggest EX 9200 switches that we use, they have a maximum ARP entry count over 256,000 ARPs, and when you run a data center that has 100 or 200,000 VMs in there, and you start to see some strange issues pop up on these switches. So we've really pushed a lot of the Juniper gear to levels that it hasn't been pushed before. Now, that's all at layer 2. If it was all layer 3, then it wouldn't really be a problem. That's our own fault. But when you build a company as quickly as we had to, you make sacrifices somewhere. Deployment, and this was on the last slide, automation is awesome. So when you need to build data centers quickly and when you need to add racks to data centers quickly, you need to have a very automated process. So we have a system right now using Juniper's zero-touch provisioning that allows us to plug a switch into the network, and it pretty much builds itself. It goes off and grabs its config, it upgrades Junos, and we can build out 20 or 30 racks in a time it takes a switch to download its version of Junos. So 5 minutes, aside from all the racking and stacking, which our data center team takes care of course. Now, being a cloud provider, internet stability is extremely important to us, and we've seen a lot of issues recently with fiber cuts happening on the West Coast. You see undersea cables getting cut all the time. So the internet is a unstable place, and you really need some tools that can give you some insights into what's going on. And obviously, ThousandEyes is a great tool for that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that pretty soon. But yeah, latency and packet loss, they're important. And what we find is that customers are actually pretty aware of latency and obviously packet loss. We get tickets logged all the time from customers who notice a 20 millisecond or 30 millisecond increase to their droplet. Now, obviously, if it's 20 or 30 milliseconds, it might not be much we can do about that. But packet loss is a big problem. You can sometimes work around latency, but packet loss is, it's horrible. Another one of the challenges that we see all the time is denial of service attacks. This is a constant problem. We get DDoS. Right now, I'm sure we've got a DDoS attack happening. It's non-stop. We have a bunch of tools that can prevent this type of stuff and mitigate it. But what we're noticing is that most of the attacks, mainly coming out of China, are from people's home devices that have been compromised. Old Windows stuff, a lot of Linux vulnerabilities these days, and it really doesn't take much for a few thousand compromised machines to really spin up a lot of traffic, and we've absorbed DDoSes of 100 gig. Well, we've had outages because of DDoSes that are 100 gig. And you see places like Cloudflare, 400 or 500 gig DDoSes are actually not that uncommon these days. So it's an interesting problem to try and solve. So yeah, why ThousandEyes? The way, I'll talk about how we deployed it in a little bit, but what we needed before we had ThousandEyes was we need to know what our network looked like from outside our network, basically. So before we had ThousandEyes, we used Pingdom, and it was okay for what it did, but it really didn't give us much visibility into how our network looked from a customer's perspective. So we trialed ThousandEyes, and everyone was pretty much on board from the first day. So we started monitoring every single data center that we have. So the way we do it is we choose about 30 or 40 cloud agents from the ThousandEyes lists and point them at a droplet, which is what we call our VMs. Point them at a droplet in every data center, and then we start to track latency, packet loss, throughput. We do run a couple of enterprise agents in 3 of our locations, so we can track some throughput. But the main things we're looking at is how does a customer see us? So latency and packet loss are really good things to know about from a customer perspective. We also got our support team really involved with ThousandEyes. So every new support member that comes on board, we train them. I do it myself. I spend a couple of hours with them, sitting down, walking them through the tool. So this allows us to give our customers really, really high level of support. If we get a big flood of tickets in because some transit carriers had an outage, the support guys can log on to this and have a look and see exactly what's going on, and then they don't have to ask the network engineers, what's going on with our Amsterdam location. It means that they can respond to the customer with some really good information on the first response with them. We don't have to go back and say, oh, can you give us a trace route? Can you give us some pings? We can actually say, yes, we've got a problem, we're troubleshooting it, and update our status page. So it makes our support a lot more quickly. It means that there's less interrupts for the network team. We don't have to deal with support saying, hey, what's going on? What's going on? We can look at ThousandEyes ourselves and go, oh yeah, there's a problem, we should probably fix that. Now, we really like the alerting features of ThousandEyes. Obviously, everyone needs to be alerted. We integrate it with our on-call alerting system, which is PagerDuty. Some of you might be aware of that. So the way we've got a bunch of different alerts set up, but the main ones are, if a location is alerting, is dropping if it's got like 20% packet loss for more than 10 minutes, it'll trigger an alert to a network engineer who can obviously log on and troubleshoot the issue. And typically it's pretty easy to see. You'll see in some slides I've got in a minute that it's really easy to see where a problem is, and it's almost even easier to fix that problem once you've identified it. And yeah, the reporting, which was touched on in the earlier talk, executives, they love reports, so we're able to see now the availability of a data center. We're able to see if there's been any weird traffic patterns, if latency or packet loss has increased to a data center over X amount of time. And we actually use it for our monthly KPI meetings. I present a lot of graphs out of ThousandEyes and pretty much just copy and paste or take a screenshot and put it onto our internal slide decks. And the execs love it, so it makes my life easier. I don't have to go digging for data. So as I said, this is a term that every network engineer has probably said at one point in time, but unfortunately, sometimes it is the network. So this is a screenshot of an outage that we had in our Frankfurt location. This was a DDoS attack, so those 4 red circles at the end there are our 2 edge routers with 4 links out to the world. That was something like 100 gig DDoS, so we buy transit from all the tier 1s, NTT, Telia. In Frankfurt we've got Tata as well, and basically all our links were just maxed at 100%. We do have some remote black holing, which unfortunately didn't kick in this case, so we hit the outage. So you can see that every single location that we were monitoring from, now these are mainly European locations, since it's a Frankfurt data center, they're all reporting a fairly, well, the brown circle means there's a lot of packet loss there. So that was easy for us to identify that, hey, yep, there's a problem, it's with our routers, we need to fix that. Sometimes issues are a little less obvious, so this was an outage that Comcast had in New York City. So you see that there's a bunch of green cloud agents getting through to the endpoint at the end there, which is just a droplet hosted in our New York City data center. So you can see that there's a bunch of things that were working fine, but there was also a lot of customers, and Comcast is a big ISP, so a lot of customers who were complaining. So our support team logged on, they saw this, and they were able to say, yeah, it looks like a Comcast problem. We'll get our network engineers to jump on that really quickly, and we just shut down our Comcast link in New York City, and problem went away, and we went and yelled at Comcast. Sometimes you get things like this, which is, yeah. So this was a problem that happened last week with Telia. They were doing a bunch of software upgrades on some of their core infrastructure, and they just forgot to down a BGP session somewhere. I don't know exactly what happened, but you look at this thing, you're like, what's going on? So it's actually really easy to see. If you just drill down to one of the things, we can see that this router in Telia, route terminates there, so it didn't have a route back to DigitalOcean, and it's dropping 100% of all the traffic. So when problems like this come up, super easy to see. Again, we just went in, we downed our link, and problem went away. So final thoughts, cloud computing, cloud has been a buzzword in the industry for, I don't know, 5 or 10 years now. It's definitely here to stay. Companies like DigitalOcean are proof of that. You don't get to hosting 500,000 VMs without it being something that is definitely going forward is going to be a huge thing. Amazon, Google, they're all doing super well. So, everyone should move to the cloud, and DigitalOcean is a great company. I touched on automation. It's getting super necessary these days, especially when we've got 2,500 or so bits of network equipment. If I want to roll out a change to every single one of them, then we use Juniper's PyEZ Python library. We can just make a change, and it pushes it out to a few thousand devices. It takes about maybe 20 minutes to run through everything. So it's really easy to make those changes, and when you've got that type of scale, especially on the network, automation is definitely necessary. I said that earlier, customers are sensitive to problems on the internet now, and a lot of customers are actually aware of what latency is and what packet loss is. So you need to give them a good answer. You need to have a decent response when they say, hey, I'm noticing some latency here. So tools like ThousandEyes really help with figuring out exactly what's happening. And a lot of customers, they'll send us a trace route and they'll say, hey, I'm noticing latency between hops 7 and 8, and they expect us to have a good answer for that. So without these type of tools, then we really can't. So visibility is key. So like I said, without being a company that lives on the internet, we really need to know the state of the internet in all of our regions. So ThousandEyes is great for that. Having your support team trained up on all the tools and having them know how to respond to a customer, then that's key-er than visibility. And like I said, sharing the tools, all our monitoring tools we share with everyone in our company. There's dashboards up all over our office, some of the ThousandEyes customized dashboards we've got. And winter is coming, so buy some boots, don't get wet. That's it for me.